The movie starts with a young princess lying on a bed in a wedding gown. She suddenly wakes up and realized she is chained. She gets up and tried to open the door but it is locked. Suddenly, two soldiers approached and she returned to the bed pretending to sleep. The soldiers came in and one tried to touch her. She suddenly wakes up, and knocked him on the head, surprising them. She then broke her own hand to unchain herself. They still underestimated her and approached her and a fierce battle begins. Surprisingly, she killed one of the soldiers with a hairpin. The second one got furious over his friend's death and charged at the princess, but she is not easy to deal with. Another fierce fight ensues and the princess takes the same hairpin and injure him again and again. She overpowers the soldier and kicked him through the window to his death. Well, that place is actually a tower, a very tall one. Another soldier then opens the door and princess knocked him out and unchained herself. She then started her journey down the tower. Through the window, she saw her family being held captive by the enemy and decided to rescue them no matter what. The scene is then cutted to her parent talking to Villian, the son of a diplomat general who has a marriage agreement with the princess, but the princess refused to marry him, because of his cruelty. Because of that, he raided the whole palace and held the royal family hostage for the princess to marry him so he could take over the kingdom. But the princess saw through this and stopped the marriage before it's too late. The scene is then cutted to the princess as she remembers how she ran away from the wedding and blames herself for the current crisis of the family. Suddenly a soldier enters her room and she hid in a bathtub while the soldier took a piss and left. She then got out of the bathtub, tore her cloth to make it simple so she can fight well. She gets out, only to meet the same soldier again and another fierce fight ensues. She takes off the soldier's helmet and killed the soldier with it. Later the soldiers found a dead soldier and realized someone is on the loose and might threaten their plan. The Villian then sent his soldiers to check if the princess is still in her chamber and they sent the only fat and fool among them to check. The princess on her way down and the tower entered another room only to get attacked by another two soldiers who does not recognize the princess. The fight got fierce once again but the princess still managed to defeat them and declared her title before ending their lives with a crossbow. She then remembered how her teacher used to train her fiercely in the bush away from the palace to hide from her father who would never allow her to learn fighting. To her father, she is a girl and must do girls' things. She picks the weapon and comes across the Villian arguing with his lover, discussing how they will kill the king after marrying the princess and take over the kingdom. On her way down, she came across a giant knight and another battle begins between them. The princess get overpowered but she used her smaller size and speed to her advantage against the knight. At last, she poured a flammable liquid on him and set him on fire and then dropped him to the ground. This alerted the Villian and he furiously ordered his soldiers to deal with it. He is still not aware it's the princess doing it. A bunch of soldiers then flooded the tower in search of the vigilante whom no one thought is the princess. They meet her and she used marbles to bring them down and walk on them. She hanged some of them in the fight while slashing most of them and stabbing many of them. The fight lasted for a while and she got injured as there are too many to handle by herself. She mustered some courage, grabbed a soldier and jumped to another floor. The fat fool whom they sent to check up on her met her on the way but was too tired to notice her. She took advantage of that and jumped off a window with a hanging cloth. She held the cloth and helped herself to another room to treat her wounds while hiding. Suddenly, someone entered the room and they attacked each other but later discovered it is her teacher. Her teacher, called Lin, then helped her treat her wounds and they both discussed a plan to take the soldiers down first. They starts from the imperial kitchen. In the kitchen, some of the soldiers tried to take advantage of a cook but got rescued by the princess and her master Lin. A fierce battle ensued and two of the soldiers got killed but then, the Villian's lover arrived with her daggered whip. Another fight continued between them and the Villian's lover overpowered them. She hanged the princess while fighting her teacher. The teacher successfully rescued the princess and used fire to separate them and the Villian, giving the princess a chance to escape through a tunnel while she, the teacher Lin, faced the Villian alone. Through the tunnel, the princess arrived at the prison where her parents are locked. She fiercely fought the guards, surprising her father. After the fight, she brought her parents out but only to get knocked out by the Villian and tied up together with her family. The Villian thought they are now under control, but the words of the princess made him realize she can never be his wife. So, he decided to marry her younger sister instead and ordered to kill the princess. Another fight begun there and her teacher took advantage of that to sneak the younger princess out and the elder one is thrown out the window into the water beneath the tower. She opened her eyes at the bottom of the water, used a broken glass to cut the rope and got out to continue her fight as she remembers her teacher's teachings. She got into the hallways again and meet a soldier but got saved by her little sister who pushed a statue to fall on him to death. With delight, they hugged and made their way into the royal weaponry. There, they chose their respective weapons and gets ready for another fight. The Villian gathered all the palace priests and palace elders ready in order to marry the little princess once they find her. Meanwhile, the princess arrives and starts fighting the soldier outside the palace hall. All the soldiers run outside and Lin comes with a bow and arrow to help fight them. The techer and student fights together against the soldiers while the little princess arrive with a knife to rescue those held captive at the hall. Later, the Villian caught the little princess and forced the priest to marry them. The princess sees this from outside the hall. Lin got into the hall and starts fighting the soldiers while the princess faces the Villian's lover outside. The fight gets very intense but the princess hangs the villain to death just like she did to her in the kitchen before. While Lin faces the Villian in the hall and gets stabbed and seriously injured. With rage, the princess asked her parents to get to safety while she faces the Villian alone. The battle between the heroine and the Villian finally begins. It gets very intense and the Villian stabs the princess with a hidden dagger and she moans in pain. The fight till they got outside the hall and he pushed the princess to the ground and declared himself king while pointing the sword at the princess beneath him. Suddenly, the princess gets up, grabbed the sword and quickly beheaded him ending the battle. Everyone smiled with joy. Her father now crowned her the heir to the throne and was so proud of her daughter. The movie ends with the big fool getting down the tower and said, "There she is," without knowing the battle has ended. Lesson: do not underestimate people based on their gender, size or age.